evening and welcome to News Channel 17 at 6. We have our top stories tonight based on the drama that is coming from the communist country, the Soviet Union.
That's right, Elissa. Tonight we are focusing on the Red Scare, the communist plan on infiltrating the American government. While seemingly absurd, our source, Igor Guzenko from the Soviet Embassy in Ottawa, Canada, has evidence. His papers have specific evidence on what the Russians wanted, the atomic bomb. For many of us Americans, this is proof the Soviets are here.
Since the Soviets are causing such problems as trying to infiltrate our government to get the plans for the atomic bomb, President Truman has created the Loyalty Review Board. Brandon has done more offsite.
In this program, designed for thinning out those whom they find suspicious, the act confirms that the Soviets have indeed entered Congress. However, when they are caught, they will be removed. These Soviets can be seen with traitorous material such as books, or even watching movies made by the Russians. The FBI has already had substantial success, arresting over 100 men for questionable loyalty.
Speaking of men being fired for questionable loyalty, Alger Hiss is in the news.
Indeed, he's received significant flack for potentially assisting the Russians. William Garcia has more.
In news relating to what Brandon was speaking, Alger Hiss has been jailed for suspicion of working with the USSR. A former Communist Party member, Whittaker Chambers, told the organization HUAC, or House Un-American Activity Committee, one of their own was against them. Hiss denied the allegations, and the case was almost dropped until Richard Nixon convinced the case to go on and discovered secret papers hidden in Pumpkin. He has been jailed and charged with perjury.
Wow, that's some crazy stuff, huh, Brandon?
Yeah, to think that Chambers, being a former Communist Party member, would rat out one of his own. It just shows how unloyal the Russians are. Speaking of unloyal Russians, William has more about a couple helping the Russians get the bomb in New York.
That's right, Brandon. Tonight, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg have also been arrested, but for much more severe consequences. These New York communists were helping produce the bomb for the Soviets. Luckily, one of our spies from the FBI caught them before they could harm any of our citizens. Their execution will be done in June 1953. They were condemned to the death for espionage. Their appeals and pleas for clemency failed. Sometimes to save lives, you need to end it.
With all the Soviet scare going on in the newly fallen China, Americans are concerned about the communist scare. Here's Jansen Floto to tell you more about the new communist propaganda.
Yes, Elissa, with the Red Scare at an all-time high with Russia's own bomb, many Americans are losing faith in our country after what Senator Joseph R. McCarthy said in one of his conferences. While the list of these 205 Communist Party members was lost, many people still followed McCarthy against the members of this party. He would even accuse members of the Democratic Party of being communists, handing out booklets to sway members to his side.
McCarthyism isn't the only Russian problem we've been encountering lately.
That's right, we have reports that the Soviets have been working on the hydrogen bomb. We go to Taylor Wietrich with the story.
Thanks, Elissa. Americans are shocked that the Soviets have successfully tested a more powerful bomb called the hydrogen bomb, or the H-bomb. We have tested our own H-bomb earlier this year. We were going to surprise attack the Soviets. Schools have created bomb shelters and taught the kids to duck and cover to protect themselves from the bomb blast. Families have built backyard fallout shelters in case there was any radiation left over after the bomb blast. These bomb shelters can help save America in case of a catastrophe.
Of the new testing of the H-bomb, there has been massive retaliation on the communistic side. Over to Logan, who has more on the topic.
Harry Truman is not going to be our president following us into the 1952 election due to the deeds he has done with the Russians making their own hydrogen bomb, China falling to communism, and leading American troops to fight in Korea. While he will not be running, the other candidates do have a quite promising outlook. Democrats will elect Adlai Stevenson, governor of Illinois, while the Republicans may have the upper hand in this one with their candidate Dwight D. Eisenhower, the hero responsible for the D-Day invasion.
There are more and more new problems with the Soviets. Two leaders have come up with an agreement called the Brinkmanship. Here's James with more.
Brinksmanship. which is the willingness to go to the brink of war to force an opponent to back down. President Eisenhower wanted to threaten nuclear war. The Taiwan crisis erupted in Asia. Communists had taken power in mainland China. Chinese nationalists still controlled Taiwan and several small islands along China's coast. Eisenhower saw Taiwan as a part of the anti-communist barrier in Asia that needed to be protected at all costs.
In addition to the brinkmanship, James has created a report on a new covert operations. Back to you, James.
Operations. Eisenhower relied on brinksmanship on several occasions. It could prevent war but could not prevent communists from staging revolutions within countries. Eisenhower decided to use hidden operations conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency. Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh had nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. CIA quickly sent agents to organize street riots. Nikita Khrushchev had emerged as a Soviet leader. That year, Khrushchev delivered a secret speech to the Soviet officials. By late October, a full-scale uprising had begun in Hungary. Although Khrushchev was willing to tolerate greater freedom in Eastern Europe, he had never meant to imply that the Soviets would tolerate an end to communism in the region.
Now away from the covert operations, we'll go on to the U-2 program. Over to you, Brittany Hawkins.
U-2 missions is the topic right now. Espionage missions flew about 70,000 feet above the reach of the Soviet air defenses. The U-2 was equipped with a state-of-the-art high-resolution camera that they had attached to the edges of the stratosphere. They took pictures at very high altitude straight above the hostile countries including the Soviet Union. We have concluded that not only are these U-2s spying on enemies, but they are on the allied countries. We now are being targeted by different enemy planes with missiles attached to them. As of right now, we know that 14 have been launched. MiG-19 tried to intercept our U-2 but could not reach high enough altitudes. The pilot, Sergei Stratinov, ended up ejecting but dying of his injuries. Collins said that the highest altitude is set to be about 68,000 feet, which is significantly lower than the actual maximum flying height.
Now on to some lighter news. We have some wonderful reports about pop culture today and the new culture of the decade.
To lighten up the matter, many different TV shows such as I Love Lucy actually has more views than the presidential inauguration. Radio is also adapting to the TV era, such as the comedy shows starring Bob Hope and Ed Sullivan. Television quizzes such as the 64,000 Question, westerns, and police shows also grabbing attention such as The Lone Ranger, Gunsmoke, and Dragnet. With television growing, many users are losing interest in movies. There has been a drop of 65% in moviegoers while Hollywood tries to help with a 3D movie. Many viewers find the glasses annoying. While theaters may be struggling, the radio industry has found new ways to work with TV. The industry has made music, sports, and weather rather than just talk shows to be heard inside the comfort of their vehicle. This allows those boring car rides to be a thing of the past.
Over to you, Brittany, with pop culture.
Popular movies such as I Was a Communist for the FBI, released in 1951, and Walk on East Beacon, released in 1952, we have came to suspect acquire a large amount of propaganda for the war that we are currently a part of. But wait, there's more. We also received word that even the immensely famous play, The Crucible, has something to do with some sort of propaganda for the war. We think it has something to do with the Germans' witch hunts. I guess we could say the hysteria can lead to false accusations. Some other honorable mentions for movies include Duck and Cover, which is commonly shown in schools. Children are shown a cartoon where a turtle avoids danger when he ducks and covers. It teaches students that if the war affects their school or their community, they should do just that, duck and cover. We have been led to believe that popular songs such as Atomic Boogie and The Atom Bomb Baby have something to do with the war as well. Other honorable mentions include Roy Acuff, Advice to Joe, which is about a Soviet leader, Joseph Stalin, and what will happen to him if he attacks the U.S. or Bob Dylan's Masters of War, which takes aim to the military chiefs and weapon manufacturers who were fueling the nuclear arms race.
My co-anchor, Elissa, also has a report on pop culture, but more on the musical
A
side.
new trend has evolved in the city of Cleveland, Ohio over the weekend when a radio disc jockey named Alan Freed happened to notice white teenagers buying Negro blues music. Freed convinced his station manager to put the music on the air as all the young listeners went crazy for it, while the older people were not as ecstatic. It has also been reported by an anonymous source that the up-and-coming white artists might copy the Negro music, making a new type of music called rock and roll. I don't know about that for sure, but what I can say is this reporter is very excited about it.
Now back again to Elissa, who has a report on the newly famous of the generation and their consequences to society.
For our cultural report tonight, we are finding that the new singer who goes by the name of Elvis Presley. Presley owns his popularity to his moves by his music and swinging his hips and dancing during his performances in a way that shocks many people. Many adults have condemned rock and roll as loud, mindless, and dangerous. In fact, the City Council of San Antonio, Texas, banned rock and roll from the jukeboxes at public swimming pools. Another group of mostly white writers and artists who call themselves Beats or the Beat Knights have also been in the news. This new music and writing style has helped create what has become known as the generation gap.
You still said owns instead of O's. For another cultural topic tonight, our reporter Taylor Wietrich has a segment on African American entertainers.
Even though it is difficult for African Americans to become singers, there are few African American male singers and even fewer female African American singing groups. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and Ray Charles all have recorded hit songs. The Shirelles and the Ronettes are the most famous female singing groups. They are influencing the popular music around the world.
And with that, we leave you a farewell, America.
Have a good night!
Go.
The CIA quickly sent agents to organize street riots. Nikita Kraljevic.
The Alger Hiss is in the news. This is like...
Sorry.
We're all good.
Together. And then, I think...
Are you just still recording?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You can end it.
You guys should start. Brandon, no one wants to see you playing with your eyeball.
For a
All right, and go.